Are Derby County getting new investors, or is this just no news? And we've gone across the last few months and we've heard about potential investors selling up to 80% of the stake, David Clowes willing to give up the club and things like that. And we've had no new news based on interested parties or based on anything like that in general. And it is really disappointing, in my opinion, not to hear anything. I understand it's a private process in a way, but ultimately, what is going on? What is the latest? What is actually happening? And the real answer is nobody knows apart from David Clowes, and that is a problem. And it's not a problem for us. It's not a problem for Derby County. It's not a problem for David Clowes. It's not a problem for the new investors. It's a problem for our January transfer window. We know that Derby County currently are on a bit of a tight budget because David Clowes obviously doesn't want to lose all of his millions funding Derby County. We already know that he's put in X amount so far, and obviously he's going to want to recoup that. But we haven't really had any inclination that we're going to get any budget for the January transfer window. Yes, we've had links to players like Louis Barry, Jadon Montour, Ali Alhamdi has popped up again, and obviously, these are really good players to be interested in and to be able to go and potentially pick up, but ultimately they require transfer fees. Now, if we do go back to the 24th of September, when David Clowes spoke to BBC Radio Derby, he discussed on there that he's in talks with potential investors and is interested in selling the majority stake of the Championship club, but he wants to keep a holding and potentially keep the chairman position. Now, in my opinion, I said it at the time, if you go back to that video, I'll try and tag it in this video, but if we go back to that video, I said at the time that I don't think we'll hear anything till the end of the season, because I think a lot of these investors are going to be based on paying for a Championship club, based on paying for Championship players and the growth that comes with that, and being 46 games or 49 games away from the Premier League. And that is what investors are going to be paying for. If we go down, we automatically lose around £10 million in TV money. So for me, this deal is always going to be a difficult one in Derby's position, where right now, as I'm recording this, we're 7 points away from the relegation zone. Obviously, later on today, when you're actually watching this video, games will have been played and we'll have more of an idea of where we look in the table. But this is sort of the problem we have at the moment, is we have no understanding of, right, we're stable, we're going to be in the Championship next season, or we're stable, we can be pushing for playoffs. Now, in my opinion, I said it in my video yesterday talking about the game versus Luton, that I think if we performed to the standard for 95 minutes every game that we have set in some of our biggest games, Bristol City, we were brilliant versus Sheffield Wednesday until we wasn't. Swansea was brilliant after they scored the double. And for me, there's those performances where you should have got more points, and if we'd have picked up those points, we'd be sat in the playoffs. And obviously, hindsight is 2020, and it's unbelievable to look at hindsight and go, "Oh, we should have won there, we should have done that, we should have done that." But we actually had the opportunity to pick up points in these games and ultimately cocked it up ourselves. So it's one of those for me where, looking through what could potentially happen with Derby County now, for me, I don't actually think there's investors at the table. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't people who are potentially willing to take on Derby, but I personally don't actually think there's anybody at the table. I personally believe that was David Clowes going, right, we're willing to be invested in, we're willing to let go of X amount of the club, come to us with offers. That's what I believe this was, in my opinion. Now, obviously, he's made it clear from day one of taking on the club that it was a short-term solution for Derby County, and he was always going to be looking to sell on. And he's been here for 3 years. There was a 5-year plan. I believe it's the next 2 seasons are covered based on the money he put in originally. So he's not having to put in extra or anything like that. Obviously, was the plan to get back to the Championship so soon? I don't really know. But obviously, we've done a really good job at doing that. And realistically, I think we could have done it in the first season had we kept Liam Rosenior. But that's a different conversation. But for me, this is where the big conversation is going to be. I think Clowes was doing it to drum up interest. I think the intention of that report by the BBC was for David Clowes to sort of make it an open discussion with the world of business that he is willing to sell up, he is willing to give up majority shares, and all he wants to do is stay a part of it. Now, I said at the time that his want to stay as a chairman could hold back any potential deal, and I still believe that could be the case, because when you think about new groups coming in, they're not going to want him to be making decisions for them based on their money. So it's a difficult one, it's an interesting one, and it's one which has to be discussed, because we're now nearly 3 months after hearing about this from the BBC and David Clowes, and we've obviously got no more information. Now, understandably, takeovers can take a long time. Look at Everton, look at Sheffield United, they're still waiting. There's a bunch of clubs going through similar situations, and in my opinion, if there was a good deal on the table, it would have been done. But I don't necessarily believe that there is any deal on the table, let alone a good deal. So it's one of those for me where people might be in talks, people might be sort of saying, oh yeah, we're interested, to get all the information. But ultimately, I think we're just in a position where we're not quite getting anything, and we're probably not actually in a position to be invested in right now. And it's not for a sense of we can't have the money, we can't take the money, because we certainly can. But for me, it's a situation of what David Clowes wants out of it. So obviously he's going to want to recoup some funds, and then obviously becoming staying as the chairman, I think, is a difficult one. Maybe as a non-executive chairman, maybe that might work, where he probably doesn't have decision-making capacity or anything like that. But for me, I just find it really difficult, that I don't really feel like we're moving forward anywhere. And obviously that is my opinion. I have no insider knowledge. I've obviously not got contacts with higher-ups at Derby County. And even the people that I do know at Derby, these aren't sort of questions that I'd even ask them or anything like that. It's not sort of that sort of situation, because that isn't fair on them. It isn't fair. It's just not a fair conversation to have, really, is it? Because you could put someone's job at risk and stuff like that. And that's obviously sort of the situation we're in, where if something is happening, we're not going to find out. It's going to be all under NDAs, pretty similar to the Mel Morris times. Now, obviously, David Clowes has been a better owner than Mel Morris so far, but who knows what could happen in the next few years. And what we don't want to do is have David Clowes run out of money. We don't want David Clowes to end in that bad way that Mel Morris ended, because realistically, if Mel Morris had sold up the season when we had Lampard, which I believe there was an offer on the table that was legit, if he'd have sold up then, we would not ever be questioning what he did for the club or anything like that. The only reason there's these discussions about Mel Morris and things like that is because of how it ended after the Lampard season, the points deductions, the administrations, the things like that. And ultimately, I do agree, Mel Morris was awful, and it got bad towards the later years. It wasn't necessarily the early years that were the problem, in my opinion. Yes, we did things to I don't believe we fuddled with FFP. I believe we got fucked over by the EFL, and it's as simple as that, really. But it's one of those things where I don't want the same thing to happen to Clowes, where he's essentially chasing his losses as the owner rather than letting the club go. I don't think Clowes will do that. I think he's smarter than that. I think he's a better businessman than that. But obviously, let me know your thoughts down in the comments on why we've heard no news on the takeover. I am quite interested to hear what people have to say. Obviously, these can be long, drawn-out processes that take 12 to 18 months. But obviously, if everything's there, deals on the table, everything's been agreed, I'm pretty sure something like this could go through in 3 to 6 months, realistically. If everything's agreed and dealt with, if there's been investors at the table for 3 months already. So it's one of those for me where I personally believe that was a situation to drum up potential interest, potential buyers. I don't necessarily think there was anyone at the table. Now, let me know your thoughts down below. Hit the like button as well. Hit the subscribe button. Turn on the notification bell. And I'll catch you in the next video.